Part 1. Lena moved quietly through the long, shiny hallway of the tall office building, the one she cleaned every day from early evening until night settled outside the glass walls. Most people barely noticed her. They saw her uniform, her gloves, her cleaning cart, and assumed she blended into the background. She didn't complain. She liked quiet work. It gave her space to think, even if her life wasn't going in the direction she once imagined. The building belonged to a well-known millionaire who ran several companies under one roof. People said he was strict but fair. Lena never met him. She only saw his picture once in a framed award by the lift. Everyone else walked quickly, chasing deadlines, carrying files, answering calls. She moved among them like a soft shadow, wiping desks, emptying bins, keeping everything in order. Not this particular evening felt different. As she pushed her cart toward the main lobby, she heard laughter and loud voices. The company's event team had been rehearsing for a coming celebration, something big that would take place in the lobby next week. They were preparing music, decorations, and a seating plan. A large piano had been placed in the center of the space-polished black. Shining under the warm lights, Lena slowed down when she saw everyone gathered around it. Some people sat on the stairs. Others stood in groups. It looked like a break more than work. Someone must have cracked a joke, because a wave of laughter filled the air again. She parked her cart at the corner, planning to clean the side tables and move on. But a few people turned and noticed her. One of them, a young man who always spoke loudly, called out to her. "Hey, you know how to play this thing?" he asked, tapping the piano lightly. A few others turned to look as if he had just invited her to join their game. Lena felt her face warm. She didn't enjoy this kind of attention. She shook her head gently. "I'm just here to work," she said softly. "Oh, come on," another woman added. "It's just for fun. Try one note at least." More voices chimed in. Some were teasing, others curious. None of them expected anything serious from her. They were just bored and wanted a laugh. The piano was too tempting. The idea of asking the cleaner to play seemed amusing to them. Lena stood still for a moment. Her eyes lowered to the ground, but she could feel the piano behind their voices. She hadn't touched one in years, not since everything in her life changed. Her mother's face flashed in her memory, the small room where they once shared dreams, and the second-hand keyboard she used to practice on. Music used to be her whole world. Then life pushed her in a different direction. She breathed slowly and tried to focus on her work, but a gentle pull inside her made it hard to walk away. "It's okay if you can't," someone added with a laugh. "We just want to see." The words weren't cruel, but they carried doubt, the kind that made her feel small. She knew they didn't mean harm. They simply didn't know her story. Lena looked at the piano. Her hands tingled slightly. She didn't want to look strange by refusing too strongly, and she didn't want them to think she was upset. So she gave a small nod. "I can try for a moment," she whispered. That was all the group needed to hear. The noise rose again, and they stepped aside to open a space for her. Someone jokingly pretended to announce her name like she was stepping onto a stage. A few people clapped playfully. Lena walked slowly to the piano bench. Her hands trembled a little, not because she was scared of playing, but because the moment felt unreal. She never thought she would touch a piano like this again, not in front of people, not in this place, not like this. When she sat down, the room grew quieter. Not completely silent, but the teasing faded. They all waited to see what she would play. Some looked amused, others curious. One person even opened a recording app on their phone. Lena placed her hands gently on the keys. They felt cold, heavier than she remembered. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting her breathing settle. She didn't plan to impress anyone. She didn't even know what she would play. She just wanted to feel the piano again, Her first touch on the keys produced a soft note, almost like a whisper. A couple of people chuckled lightly, expecting her to stop. But she didn single quotes T dot slowly. Her fingers found a pattern she knew by heart, something she once played late at night when the world felt too heavy. The melody was simple, quiet, and emotional. It was something she made years ago when she needed comfort. The lobby changed the moment she began to play. Conversation stopped. Chairs stopped moving. Phones lowered. People actually listened. Her hands moved carefully, but with warmth. Each note carried something she never said aloud, memories of her mother humming beside her, evenings filled with hope, mornings filled with lessons they couldn't afford, but still made time for. Lena didn't play loudly. She didn't try to show skill or speed. She just played honestly. And honesty spread through the room like a soft light. A man standing near the coffee table forgot he was holding his cup. Someone seated on the stairs leaned forward, eyes fixed on her hands. A woman who had laughed earlier now watched with quiet surprise. The melody grew deeper. Lena's shoulders relaxed. Her breathing blended with the rhythm. The room felt bigger, yet safer at the same time. She didn't notice tears forming at the corners of her eyes. The memories were too strong, the good ones and the painful ones. She didn't hear anything around her except the music. For the first time in a long while, she felt like herself again. The group that had challenged her exchanged stunned looks. None of them expected this. Not from the cleaner, who silently walked past them every day. Not from the person they assumed had no connection to this grand piano. The melody softened toward the end. Her fingers slowed. The last note lingered in the air longer than she expected. It felt like a goodbye to something she lost, and a greeting to something she wasn't sure she could still have. When the note finally faded, the room stayed completely still. Lena pulled her hands back quickly, almost embarrassed by how deeply she had played. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve and stood up. "I hope that was okay," she whispered. For a moment, no one spoke. Then a gentle wave of applause filled the lobby, not excited, not loud, but sincere and warm. The kind that comes when people are moved more than surprised. The young man who joked earlier stepped forward. His voice wasn't loud anymore. That was really something, he said. Another woman nodded, still wide-eyed. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Lena shook her head lightly. "It was a long time ago," she said. "I don't really play anymore." "You should," someone else said quietly. She didn't know how to answer that. She simply smiled a little and stepped back from the group, her heart still beating fast. She had no idea where this moment would lead or how many things it was about to change. All she knew was that she had played again, really played, for the first time in years. And in a corner of the upper balcony where she hadn't noticed him, someone else had been watching. Someone important. Someone who would soon step into her life in a way she never expected. But for now, Lena picked up her cleaning cart and continued working, unaware that her quiet melody had already begun to echo far beyond the lobby walls. Part 2. Lena tried to return to her work as if nothing unusual had happened, but her hands still shook slightly as she wiped down a table near the lobby entrance. Each time she blinked, she could still hear the last note she had played echoing softly in her mind. It didn't fade the way normal moments did. It stayed warm and painful at the same time. The group she had played for slowly drifted back to their tasks, but they kept glancing at her from time to time. They weren't laughing anymore. Their expressions had changed into something else: curiosity, respect, and maybe even a little guilt. Lena felt it. She wasn't angry with them. She understood why they teased at first. People often assume things when someone moves quietly through the world. Still, she wished her heart wasn't beating so fast. It made it hard to breathe evenly. She wasn't used to attention. Not this kind. She had lived most of her recent life trying not to be noticed, trying not to be a burden, trying not to take space that someone else might need. Her mother used to say, "Music finds you when words can't carry what you feel." Lena didn't fully understand that as a child, but she felt it now. The melody she played carried everything she had kept hidden for years. She pushed her cleaning cart down the hallway toward the private conference rooms. The building lights brightened in a slow wave as night settled outside, painting the windows in deep blue. The air was cooler here, and the voices from the lobby faded behind her dot as she cleaned the glass doors. Her thoughts drifted back to the life she once had, the small apartment she shared with her mother, the quiet evenings when they sat together while her mother repaired clothes for extra income, the old keyboard they bought from a neighbor who no longer needed it. Lena remembered the feeling of her mother's warm hand resting on her shoulder as she practiced. She remembered the nights when the world felt gentle because the music made it so. Those memories lived deep inside her, untouched by time. But then came the illness, the long hospital stays, the bills that arrived faster than the hope they tried to hold on to. Their little keyboard had been sold to pay for medicine. Lena took cleaning jobs in different places so they could survive. Her dream of studying music slowly slipped through her fingers like sand. Her mother passed away quietly one winter evening. Since then, Lena had kept her heart guarded. Every dream felt too heavy to carry alone. After wiping down the tables and sanitizing the doorknobs, Lena moved to the last conference room on the floor. She pushed the door gently, expecting it to be empty. But her steps froze when she saw a man sitting inside. It was Mr. Rowan, the millionaire owner of the building. She recognized him instantly from the framed portrait by the lift. His silver hair, gentle but sharp eyes, and calm posture made him unmistakable. He wasn't on the phone, wasn't reading papers. He was simply sitting there as if waiting. Lena quickly stepped back. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know someone was here. I can come back later." He raised his hand slightly, signaling her not to hurry away. "It's all right," he said. His voice was steady but warm. "You can continue. I was waiting for someone, but they won't arrive for another few minutes." She nodded carefully and rolled her cart inside, feeling suddenly small in the large room with its high ceilings and tall windows. She kept her eyes lowered, not wanting to bother him, but as she cleaned, she sensed he was watching her, not in a harsh or judging way, but thoughtfully. She didn't dare look up. Finally, he spoke. "I heard someone playing the piano in the lobby," he said. "Was that you?" Her heart jumped. She froze with the cloth still in her hand. She hadn't known he heard her. She wasn't even aware he had been there. "Yes," she whispered. "Just for a moment. They asked me to try." He nodded slowly. "You play with emotion. Not something you hear often." Lena felt her cheeks warm. She looked down. "It was nothing. I haven't played in years." "Even years can't erase a gift," he replied. She wasn't sure how to respond. Compliments from her coworkers surprised her earlier, but compliments from this man felt unreal. She didn't know if she deserved them. He leaned back in his chair. "Where did you learn?" "My mother taught me," she said softly. She loved music. "We didn't have much, but she always found a way to help me learn." He listened closely, his expression thoughtful. "And why did you stop?" She hesitated. "Life changed," she said. It was the simplest way to explain everything without opening wounds she wasn't ready to expose. He didn't press further. Instead, he nodded again with quiet understanding. "You know," he said, "every year we hold a charity event to raise funds for children who can't afford lessons or instruments. Music shaped my childhood too. I believe it should be accessible to anyone who has the heart for it." Lena didn't know why he was telling her this. Maybe he mentioned it because he talked about it often. Maybe he thought she would simply listen. "I've been searching for performers," he continued. "People who can touch hearts with their music, not just impress crowds with skill." Her breath caught for a moment. She didn't dare imagine what he was hinting at. "I'm not a performer," Lena said quickly, her voice nervous. "I only played a small tune. I'm not trained." "I'm not." He raised his hand again, gently stopping her words. "You don't have to be trained to move people. You already did." Lena didn't know what to say. Her fingers tightened around the cleaning cloth dot. Just then, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen before standing up. "My meeting is downstairs." "I should go," he said. She stepped aside to let him pass. He paused near the door and looked at her with a calm expression. "Thank you for the music," he said. "It's been a long time since I heard something that pure." Then he left the room. Lena stood still, the weight of his words settling inside her. She felt overwhelmed. She didn't play to impress anyone. She played because something inside her needed to breathe for a moment. And now the owner of the entire building had heard her. She finished cleaning the room carefully. Her steps felt lighter but confused. She didn't know what would happen next. Maybe nothing. Maybe he simply appreciated the moment and would forget by tomorrow. People like him had dozens of tasks, meetings, and responsibilities. She was just a cleaner. Still, his words stayed with her. "You already moved people." She pushed her cart back to the storage room, her mind replaying the melody she played earlier. She wondered what her mother would say if she had seen that moment. Maybe she would smile proudly. Maybe she would tell her not to fear the world so much. When her shift ended, Lena walked toward the bus stop under the soft glow of the streetlights. The night was cool, and the city hummed quietly around her. She wrapped her arms around herself, not because she was cold, but because her heart felt full in a way she hadn't felt for years. As she waited for the bus, her fingers moved slowly in the air, as if gliding over piano keys. She knew she shouldn't think too deeply about what happened. Expectations only led to disappointment, but deep down, something inside her had woken up again. Something she thought she had buried. Something that might bring change she never asked for, but maybe always needed. For the first time in a long while, Lena wondered if her story wasn't finished yet, if maybe, just maybe, it was about to begin again. Part 3. Lena returned to work the next evening with a strange feeling in her chest, something between nervousness and curiosity. The memory of the previous night replayed in her mind again and again. The lobby crowd watching her play, the way the room fell quiet, and the unexpected conversation with the building's owner. She tried to push it aside, but it kept rising to the surface, no matter how hard she tried to focus on her tasks. She walked through the security gate, signed her name in the logbook, and carried her small bag toward the staff room. Her uniform hung neatly in her locker, and she changed into it with slow movements. Every part of her routine felt familiar, but something inside her didn't feel the same. She wondered if anyone from yesterday would bring up the piano again. She hoped they wouldn't. She wasn't sure if she could handle more attention. When she stepped out into the hallway, the building was already buzzing with early evening activity. Meetings were wrapping up, coffee cups clattered on desks, and people moved quickly between floors. It looked like any other day, but as soon as she reached the lobby, she noticed something different. A few members of the event team were gathered near the piano again. Their faces lit up when they saw her. "There she is," one of them said. Lena froze for a moment, unsure what they wanted. "You came back," another added with a smile. She nodded quietly. "I work here every evening." They laughed softly, not in a teasing way, but more like they were relieved to see her. One of the women stepped closer. "We were talking about you today. That piece you played yesterday, it stayed in our heads, even during meetings." Lena felt her cheeks warm. I didn't mean to disturb anything. No, no, the woman said quickly. It wasn't disturbing. It was moving. A few others nodded in agreement that the young man who had teased her the most the previous day walked toward her, holding a clipboard. He looked different today, more respectful, almost apologetic. Hey, he said quietly. I wanted to say sorry for how we acted yesterday. We were being silly. We didn't know you. Well, we didn't know you could play like that. Lena pressed her hands together gently. You weren't hurtful. It's all right. But he shook his head. Still, it wasn't fair. You didn't deserve to be put on the spot like that. Before Lena could answer, another voice joined the conversation. Are you going to play again today? She looked toward the questioner and saw a woman holding a stack of event flyers. She looked hopeful, like she genuinely wanted to hear Lena play. Lena's heart fluttered. I don't think I should. I have my shift to finish. The group exchanged looks, understanding her hesitation. They didn't push her this time. Their excitement softened into appreciation. We won't ask again, one of them assured her. But if you ever want to play, even just a few notes, we'd be happy to listen. Lena gave a small nod and turned toward her cleaning cart. Hearing their sincere voices warmed something deep inside her, but she couldn't let herself get too carried away. She had responsibilities. She had a job to keep. She couldn't allow her heart to dream too far. Too fast. She pushed her cart into the hallway and began her tasks, trying to steady her thoughts. She cleaned the glass panels along the staircase, wiped the banisters, and polished the small brass plates near the elevator buttons. Her hands moved automatically, but her mind drifted. She thought about the man who owned the building, Mr. Rowan. She wondered if he had only been polite, or if he truly meant what he said. People in his position often made comments in passing, not expecting them to carry weight. She didn't want to assume anything. As she worked, she noticed more people than usual walking past the piano. Some paused, looking at it as if remembering last night. A few whispered about the performance, and once or twice, someone glanced around as if hoping the quiet cleaner from yesterday would appear again. Lena pretended not to hear the whispers, but she did. They made her chest feel warm and heavy at the same time. When she reached the 4th floor, she began collecting trash bags from each office. The sound of a meeting leaked through the walls, muffled and distant. She moved quietly so she wouldn't disturb anyone. In one of the offices, she found a woman sitting behind her desk, massaging her temples. Papers were spread out everywhere. You can come in, the woman said, when she noticed Lena standing by the door. I'm just drowning in work. Lena stepped inside gently. I can come back later if you prefer. No. It's okay. As Lena emptied the bin, the woman spoke again. I heard you played the piano yesterday. Lena paused. Word had spread faster than she expected. Yes, she replied softly. Just a small piece. The woman smiled faintly. People were talking about it all day. It must feel nice. I'm not used to attention, Lena said. That's usually the case for people with real talent. The woman said. Lena didn't know how to take that. So she simply nodded and went back to her work. She didn't want to talk too much. She didn't want anyone to think she was proud or looking for praise. After finishing the 4th floor, she moved to the 5th, then the 6th. Her routine kept her busy, but her mind kept replaying everything. The music inside her refused to stay quiet. As she stepped into the 7th floor hallway, she felt a slight tug in her chest. It was the same sensation she felt before playing yesterday, a mix of longing and fear. By the time she finished the upper floors and returned to the lobby, it was nearly empty. Most of the staff had gone home, leaving behind quiet echoes and soft background music from the speakers. The piano stood alone in the center of the lobby, its glossy surface reflecting the warm lights. It looked peaceful, almost inviting. Lena's steps slowed. The building was quiet. No crowds, no laughter, no teasing voices. Just silence. She looked around. The security guard at the front desk was half asleep, scrolling through his phone. The event team had left papers and decorations scattered on a nearby table, but they were gone too. She placed her cart near the wall and walked toward the piano without fully deciding to. It felt like something inside her was guiding her steps. Her fingers tingled slightly as she touched the edge of the polished wood. She closed her eyes and took a slow breath. There were no expectations tonight. No one waiting for her to perform. No one watching. She could simply play for herself. She sat on the bench and lifted the cover gently, revealing the smooth keys beneath. Her hands hovered above the keys for a moment. She wasn't sure what to play. Memories floated in and out of her mind, small pieces she had written years ago. Songs her mother hummed, melodies she used to make up when she felt lonely. Finally, she let her fingers fall. This time, the music came out softer, almost like a secret. The melody drifted through the empty lobby like warm air, wrapping around the quiet space. It wasn't the same piece she played yesterday. This one was slower, deeper, and filled with longing. Lena didn't notice the tears forming at first. She didn't notice the way her shoulders relaxed or the way her breathing matched the rhythm. She was lost in the sound. The music carried her back to afternoons spent with her mother, to laughter that echoed through their little apartment, to the feeling of being understood without saying a word. She remembered the last time she played for her mother, how her mother closed her eyes and smiled, even though she was in pain. She remembered promising herself she would play again someday. She broke that promise for a long time. No. At last, she was keeping it. As the music grew richer. She didn't realize she wasn't alone. Someone had stepped into the lobby. He stood quietly near the corner. Listening. It was Mr. Rowan. He hadn't planned to be here tonight. He had returned to his office to pick up a file he forgot during the day. But when he reached the lobby and heard the soft melody floating through the air, he stopped in his tracks. The sound drew him in like a gentle pull. He walked closer, careful not to disturb her. He watched the way her shoulders lifted and settled with the music, the way her head tilted slightly, as if listening to someone only she could hear. He saw the tears she didn't wipe away, and he recognized something rare, true emotion, the kind that couldn't be taught. Lena played the final notes with trembling fingers. The melody faded, leaving only silence behind. She exhaled shakily and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She hadn't intended to cry. She just felt too much at once. That was beautiful, a voice said gently from behind her. She gasped and turned around instantly. Mr. Rowan stood there, not too close, not too far. His expression was calm, but his eyes held a softness she hadn't seen yesterday. "I'm sorry," Lena said quickly, standing up. "I didn't mean to. I know I shouldn't be playing while I'm working." "You're not in trouble," he said. She looked down. "Unsure. You play," he continued, like someone who has lived a lot of life. Lena didn't know what to say. Her hands tightened around the edge of the bench. He stepped a little closer. "I meant what I said yesterday. There's something real in your music. Something people don't hear often." She lowered her gaze. "It's just part of me. I don't know if it's anything special." "It is," he said softly. "More than you realize." Lena felt the weight of his words settle inside her slowly, like a quiet light. He didn't. The next morning came with a strange silence, the kind that made every sound feel louder than usual. She woke up earlier than she needed to, even though her shift at the hotel did not start until mid-morning. Her mind kept replaying the moment from the previous night when the millionaire boss, a man known for hardly showing emotion, had stopped and listened to her playing. She did not fully understand what he felt, but she could tell it had stirred something inside him. and now she worried about what it could mean. Her mother noticed her restlessness as they shared a simple breakfast. The woman had always been soft-spoken, but she had a sharp eye when it came to her daughter. She did not ask many questions. She simply watched her with calm patience. The girl avoided giving too much away. She did not want to raise hopes or fears. She only said she had played the piano briefly after closing, and someone had overheard her. She left out the part about who that someone was. After breakfast, she walked to the hotel with her usual steady steps, but her thoughts moved like a storm. She did not know if the millionaire boss would speak to her, ignore her, or pretend the whole moment never happened. He was the type who controlled every detail of his world, and she knew people like him did not easily admit when something had surprised them. When she arrived at the service entrance, the other staff members greeted her with the same teasing smiles they often used. They still remembered the little challenge from the previous night. To them, it had been a joke, a small moment of fun after a long shift. They did not know that someone important had witnessed her play. "You going to give us another performance tonight?" one of the older workers asked while sorting linen. She smiled politely and shook her head. "Not today. I'll just finish my shift." They laughed, but she could tell they had no intention of pushing her. They had seen she wasn't the type to show off. She started her work cleaning hallways, setting up rooms, making sure everything looked perfect before guests checked in. She moved quickly and quietly, as she always did. Her effort was the one thing no one could deny. Even those who joked with her knew she took her responsibilities seriously. But around noon, something unusual happened. A supervisor approached her while she was polishing the glass on a door. The woman looked slightly tense, as if she wasn't sure how to deliver the message. "The boss wants to see you in his office," she said. Her heart tightened. "Why?" "I don't know," the supervisor replied. "He didn't say?" "Just asked for you by name." Being called by name alone was strange. Most staff members were only recognized by position, rarely personally. She swallowed and nodded, trying to keep her hands steady. The walk to the top floor felt longer than usual. The elevator seemed too quiet, the air inside too cold. When the doors opened, the contrast between the busy lower floors and the quiet executive level felt sharp. Thick carpets muffled her footsteps, and large windows filled the hallway with daylight. His assistant was waiting at the end of the hall. "You can go in," she said gently. The girl stepped. Inside, the millionaire boss was standing near the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city. He did not turn right away. She waited, unsure if she should speak first. The silence stretched until he finally faced her. "You played last night," he said, without any introduction. She nodded. "I'm sorry if it caused trouble." "I won't do it again." He raised a hand slightly. "I didn't call you here to scold you. I just want to know, where did you learn to play like that?" She hesitated. No one had asked her that in a long time. "My father taught me when I was small," she answered softly. "Before he passed." His expression shifted, just a little. "You play with emotion. That's rare." She lowered her eyes, unsure how to respond. After a moment, he spoke again. "Last night, you played a piece I haven't heard in years. It was something my grandmother used to play. I didn't expect to hear it again." The detail surprised her. She had simply played something familiar, something that always made her feel calm. She didn't know it had a personal meaning for him. He walked back to his desk and gestured for her to sit. She did, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "You work here, but you have a talent that doesn't match the life you're living," he said. "I want to understand what you plan to do with it." She blinked. No one had ever asked her something like that. Her plans? Her future? She barely allowed herself to dream about those things. Every day was focused on helping her mother, keeping their small home running and making sure they did not fall behind on bills. "I don't have any plans," she said honestly. "I just work. That's all." He studied her for a long moment, as if trying to read what she wasn't saying. "What if you had a chance to do something more?" He finally asked. Her pulse quickened. "I don't know." He leaned back in his chair. "I'm not promising anything. I just want you to understand that the world doesn't stay small unless you keep it small. Your father gave you a gift. It shouldn't be ignored." She didn't know how to answer. The idea of leaving behind her routine, even imagining a different life, felt almost frightening. She had responsibilities. She had her mother. She had the life she had built piece by piece. He seemed to sense her uncertainty. "Don't think about it now. Just remember what I said." She nodded slowly. Before she could stand to leave, he added, "And if you don't mind, I'd like to hear you play again. Not tonight. Not as a challenge. Just when you're ready." The request surprised her more than anything else he had said. No staff member had ever been invited to play for someone like him. She didn't know whether she should agree, but she didn't want to appear rude. "I'll try," she whispered. He dismissed her with a small gesture, and she walked out of the office, still stunned. The assistant gave her a curious look as she left, but didn't ask any questions. Back downstairs, the noise of normal hotel life returned, but it felt distant. She kept thinking about his words. What if you had a chance to do something more? As the day continued, she tried to focus on her tasks, but her mind wouldn't settle. She replayed every moment of the meeting. She wondered if he was serious, or if he would forget everything by tomorrow. When she finally returned home, her mother noticed something different in her eyes. "You're quiet today," her mother said while preparing dinner. "It was a long day," she replied. After a pause, her mother asked gently, "Did something happen?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Someone important heard me play." Her mother froze. "Important how?" She didn't explain too much. She simply said, "Just someone who doesn't usually listen." Her mother did not press further. She had always respected her daughter's privacy, but she reached out and placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Whatever comes, face it with honesty. That's all you need." That night, the girl could not sleep easily. She lay awake, wondering why a simple moment at a piano had created such a ripple. She wondered if the boss's memory of his grandmother was the only reason he cared. She wondered what he saw in her playing, and she wondered if maybe, just maybe, this moment was not random. The next day would bring answers she didn't expect. But for now, she let her thoughts drift in the dark, unsure whether to feel fear or hope. The morning began with a soft gray sky, the kind that looked like it was holding back rain. She woke up feeling heavier than usual, as if her dreams had carried more weight than she could manage. The previous day had left her with too many thoughts, too many feelings she didn't know how to sort through. She moved slowly around the small home she shared with her mother, quietly making tea and trying to steady herself before leaving for the hotel. Her mother watched her carefully, though she didn't ask anything. It was her way of giving space while still showing she cared. Before the girl stepped out the door, her mother simply said, "Remember, your heart knows what is right." Those words stayed with her as she walked to work, carrying a mixture of fear and curiosity. She didn't know if the millionaire boss would say anything to her today, or if everything that happened yesterday had been nothing more than a moment he had already forgotten. When she reached the hotel, the staff area was busy as usual. People moved around with carts, trays, and clipboards, speaking in short sentences and quick instructions. But something felt different. A few workers glanced at her with curious eyes, though she didn't understand why. It wasn't until she reached her locker that one of the younger workers whispered, "The boss asked about you this morning." She froze. Why? He didn't say. Just wanted to know if you arrived. She tried to stay calm, but her heart beat unevenly. She thanked the worker and went to her assigned tasks. She focused on cleaning rooms, checking details, and making beds as neatly as possible. But part of her mind stayed alert, waiting for something to happen. It didn't take long. By midday, a message was sent to her through a supervisor. He wants to see you again. Her hands trembled slightly as she walked to the elevator. She didn't know what he wanted from her. She kept telling herself that she had done nothing wrong. But she also knew that someone in his position didn't call the same worker twice unless there was a reason. When she reached the top floor, his assistant greeted her more warmly this time. You can go in. He's expecting you. She stepped into the office. The boss was sitting behind his large desk, reading something on a screen. He looked up the moment she entered. Sit, he said gently, not with the cold tone many staff members feared. She sat quietly. He studied her for a moment before speaking. I want to show you something. He stood and walked toward a small shelf in the corner of the room. He picked up an old wooden box, carefully wiping dust off the top before opening it. Inside was a stack of old music sheets, some yellowed at the edges. He brought the box to the desk and placed it in front of her. These belong to my grandmother, he said. She was the one who taught me to appreciate music. She used to play the same piece you played that night. She looked at the sheets with quiet respect. They looked delicate, as if they had passed through many hands over the years. He opened the top sheet and pointed to the notes. She used to say that music reveals truth, not by words, but by feeling. She listened carefully. He wasn't someone who spoke emotionally, not even in small moments. But now, his voice carried a softness she hadn't heard before. He continued, When I heard you play that piece, I remembered her, and I realized how much time has passed since I last allowed myself to feel anything like that. She looked down, unsure how to respond. He closed the box, but left his hand on top of it. I want you to understand something. Talent like yours doesn't appear every day, and it shouldn't be wasted. Her breath caught. I'm not sure what you mean. He leaned back in his chair. I want to see if you're willing to learn, properly, not as a hobby, not as a late-night moment, as something real. She blinked, struggling to take in the words. You want to teach me? She asked timidly. Not exactly, he said. I want to offer you lessons, real lessons, with someone who can train you. I know people who can help you grow if you want that. Her hands tightened in her lap. She didn't know what to say. She had never imagined such a possibility. Lessons cost money, time, planning none of which she had. I don't think I can afford something like that, she whispered. You won't have to, he replied firmly. I'll take care of it. Her eyes widened. Why? Why would you do that for me? He paused, choosing his words carefully. Because what you did the other night. It reminded me that not everything in life has to be a transaction. It reminded me that some things are simply meant to be shared. Your talent deserves a chance. She swallowed hard. Gratitude mixed with worry. But I still have responsibilities. I have work, and my mother. He nodded. I know. And I'm not asking you to leave your work. Lessons wouldn't interfere with your shift. I've already thought through the details. She stared at him, surprised by how much he had considered. He added softly, I'm offering you an opportunity, not an obligation. You can say no if you want to. Her mind raced. She thought of her mother's tired hands. She thought of nights when she wished she could play real music again, but had no piano of her own. She thought of her father's lessons, long ago, when their life felt simpler. May I think about it? She asked quietly. Of course, he said. Take as much time as you need. She stood, thanked him, and left the office with her heart full of questions. On her way back to the staff area, she felt lighter and heavier at the same time. A few coworkers noticed her dazed expression, but she didn't explain anything. She didn't know how when she finished her shift and walked home, the air had turned chilly. She held her jacket close and tried to calm her thoughts. Her mother was sitting near the window when she arrived. The woman looked up, noticing the tension in her daughter's face. "What happened today?" her mother asked. The girl took a deep breath and sat beside her. "The boss. He offered me something." Her mother listened closely. "He wants me to take real piano lessons," the girl continued softly. "He said he would arrange everything. I don't understand why he cares so much." Her mother's face softened. She took her daughter's hand. "Not everyone comes into our lives to take. Some people come to give. But why me?" The girl whispered. Her mother smiled gently. "Because you touched something inside him. Maybe it reminded him of something he lost. Maybe he sees something in you that you don't see yet." The girl lowered her gaze, unsure whether she deserved such kindness. Her mother squeezed her hand. "You don't have to accept, but at least consider what it could mean for your life." They sat quietly for a while, listening to the soft hum of the neighborhood outside. Later that night, long after her mother had gone to sleep, the girl stood by the small window. She looked out at the streetlights, flickering in the distance. She imagined herself learning properly, playing in ways she never thought possible. But she also imagined failing, disappointing everyone, and losing the small stability she had now. She closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to dream a little. Tomorrow, she would give him an answer, a decision that could change everything. She did not sleep much that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she kept seeing the piano, the music sheets, and the look on the millionaire boss's face when he spoke about his grandmother. It was a strange mix of hope and fear, both pulling her in different directions. She knew that whatever she chose would change something in her life, even if the change was small. And she wasn't sure if she was ready for that when morning came. She prepared for work slowly, feeling every movement in a deeper way. Her mother watched her quietly, noticing the heaviness in her steps. Before she left the house, her mother placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Whatever you decide, I'm proud of you," her mother whispered. Those words gave her a warmth she carried with her on the walk to the hotel. The hotel was busy as always, but it felt different to her today. She felt as if she were walking through two worlds at the same time, the world where she worked quietly as a cleaner, and another world she wasn't sure she belonged in yet. Something in her heart pulled her toward the second world, but fear still tried to pull her back. The hours passed slowly. She cleaned rooms, folded sheets, organized carts, and moved with her usual quiet rhythm. She tried to keep her thoughts from overwhelming her, but every time she paused, she felt her decision sitting heavily inside her chest, not by early afternoon. She knew she couldn't avoid it anymore. The supervisor found her outside one of the rooms and said softly, "He wants to see you." She nodded without speaking. She already expected it. She walked to the elevator, pressing the button with slightly shaky fingers. Every second in the elevator felt longer than it should. When the doors opened to the silent executive floor, she stepped out and took a deep breath. The assistant looked up and gave her a small, encouraging smile. "You can go in." The girl thanked her and entered. The millionaire boss was standing near his desk, reading something on a tablet. He lifted his eyes as she walked in. "You're here," he said gently. "Take a seat." She sat across from him, folding her hands tightly in her lap. He placed the tablet down and gave her his full attention. "I assume you've thought about everything I said yesterday." She nodded. "Yes, I thought a lot. And?" he asked. His voice held no pressure, only quiet patience. She took a breath. I want to accept. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then he nodded slowly, as if he had been expecting this answer. Good, he said softly. I'm glad. But the girl wasn't done. She had been thinking deeply all night. I want to do it, but only if I can still support my mother and continue my work, she said. I don't want to be treated differently from the other staff. I don't want anyone to think I'm getting something special for the wrong reasons. His expression warmed, almost proudly. You're not getting anything for the wrong reasons. Your talent is the only reason, and your work won't be affected. Lessons will be arranged around your schedule. She nodded again, relief washing over her dot. He continued, the first lesson will be this weekend. I've contacted a music teacher I trust. She has worked with many talented players before. I think you'll learn a lot from her. The girl felt her heart rise. She imagined sitting in a real lesson, learning properly, her fingers finally playing music the way her father once dreamed she would. But then another thought hit her, and her face softened with worry. What if I'm not good enough? She whispered. The millionaire boss leaned forward slightly, his voice calm and grounded. You already showed you're good enough. What you did that night wasn't luck. It was real emotion, real skill. What you lack is training, not talent. Training can be given. Talent cannot. Her eyes filled for a moment, though she blinked the feeling away quickly. He stood and walked to the old wooden box on the shelf again. He opened it carefully, took out one of the folded sheets, and handed it to her. This is the piece you played that night, he said. I want you to keep it. She hesitated. I can't take something that belongs to your family. He smiled gently, shaking his head. My grandmother would have wanted someone to play it, not hide it. The girl accepted the sheet with both hands. The paper was old, but it felt alive with history. She looked at the notes, remembering the feeling of playing it. Thank you, she whispered. He nodded once, then added in his calm but firm tone, This is just the beginning. Don't be afraid of it. She left the office feeling lighter than she had felt in years. The assistant smiled at her again on the way out, as if she knew something good had happened. Downstairs, the hotel noise surrounded her again, but this time it didn't feel heavy. She felt a spark inside her, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a very long time. When her shift ended, she rushed home. Her mother was sitting near the small window, sewing something quietly. The girl sat beside her and carefully explained everything, the offer, the lessons, the box with music sheets, and the decision she made. Her mother listened with deepening emotion, her eyes softening with every word. When the girl finished, her mother smiled, truly smiled, with a tender pride. My child, her mother whispered, touching her cheek gently, your father would have been so proud of you. He always believed you had something special. You're not only accepting a chance, you're honoring him too. The girl lowered her head, tears gathering but not falling. Her mother pulled her into a warm hug, holding her as if protecting her from every doubt. The rest of the week passed quietly, but filled with anticipation. Every night before bed, the girl unfolded the old music sheet and traced the notes with her fingertips, imagining the lessons that were coming. When the weekend finally arrived, she woke up early and prepared with nervous excitement. She dressed simply but neatly, tied her hair back, and kept the sheet in her bag. The driver sent by the boss arrived on time and greeted her kindly. She felt shy, but he reassured her with a respectful smile. They drove through parts of the city she had never seen before, wide streets, clean parks, tall buildings with shining glass. She felt as if she were being transported into another world. The music teacher's studio was a small but beautiful place filled with warm light and shelves of books. A large grand piano stood at the center like a king of the room. The teacher was an older woman with gentle eyes. She welcomed the girl with warmth, not judgment. "So, you're the young player I've heard about," the teacher said. "Let's see what your fingers can tell me." The girl sat at the piano, her heart pounding. She placed her fingers on the keys and began to play. The piece she had played that night, the piece from the music sheet, the room filled with soft, emotional notes. Her hands shook at first, but soon steadied as she allowed herself to sink into the music. When she finished, she looked up nervously. The teacher smiled with an expression of genuine admiration. "You play with heart. That cannot be taught. You're going to do very well." Relief and hope washed over her, almost overwhelming. The lesson continued for over an hour. The teacher corrected her posture, guided her hand movement, explained breathing, rhythm, and emotional balance. The girl absorbed everything like dry, earth-drinking water. At the end, the teacher placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're ready for this journey. Don't doubt it." As she left the studio, she felt taller, brighter, stronger. When she returned home that afternoon, she carried the music sheet in her hand. But inside, she carried something far more powerful, a sense of purpose. She knew now that her life would not stay the same. She might still work at the hotel. She might still live humbly, but inside her, something had burst open. She had a path now, and she would walk it, with every lesson. Every note, every moment of courage, she would move closer to the life that once felt unreachable. She didn't know where this journey would eventually lead, but she knew one thing clearly. She was no longer the girl who played only when dared. She was becoming the girl who played because she was meant to. And the world slowly, quietly was beginning to listen. She woke up earlier than usual the next morning, long before the sky had even decided whether it wanted to be blue or gray. For a few seconds, she simply lay still, listening to the soft hum of the old fan in the corner, trying to understand why her chest felt tight in a way that was both heavy and warm. Then it came back to her, the performance, the crowd, the way people had looked at her like she was someone who mattered. Not someone standing behind a cleaning cart or waiting while her mother wiped tables. For the first time in her life, she had been seen for her gift. The tiny apartment was quiet. Her mother was still asleep on the couch, curled under a blanket that had lost its color years ago. She eased herself out of bed, careful not to make a sound, but her mother stirred anyway. "You're up early," her mother murmured, sitting up slowly. She smiled. "Couldn't sleep much." Her mother nodded, even though she still looked half asleep. "Big day yesterday." Those words felt too small for what had actually happened. "Yeah, it was." Her mother watched her with tired eyes, but there was a softness in them that she hadn't seen in a long time. "I'm proud of you." That simple sentence felt like a blanket around her shoulders. Her mother didn't say things like that lightly. She didn't say them unless she truly meant them. They shared a quiet moment before the world forced them to move again. Her mother had to get ready for work, and she had promised to help at the community hall later that afternoon. But for now, they just sat together, breathing the same small room air, trying to process a new reality neither of them had expected. When,